Thank you. Thank you, Jay. So I thought I'll start with some questions for you. How many of you have thought about the future of education? Yeah, good, good. And when you think about the future, what's one word that comes up for you? Let's say future, matlab, like 50 years from now. Not like future of education tomorrow, but 50 years. What's one word which will come up for you?
No exams.
Huh?
No exams.
No exams. Okay.
It's a personalized education.
Personalized. Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Relevance.
Relevance. Anything about what else? Let's hear a few more. One more. Sorry?
Virtual.
Virtual. Is that the future? More virtual. Okay. Anyone else? AI. Okay.
The world.
The world. Okay. Yes. Anyone else? Yeah.
Genetic programming.
Genetic programming. Okay. When I usually talk to groups about this, one word that comes up very strongly is uncertainty. Uncertainty. We don't know actually. If you think of our whole lives, the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, the amount of change. I came to Kathmandu 26 years ago, and it is so different. Nothing what I would have imagined. And so I think how to deal with this uncertainty is something very important for us to acknowledge and start to work with, because much of the formal education system as we know it has been built on a paradigm of certainty, a paradigm of control, a paradigm of predictability. And what if that paradigm is falling apart? It's one of the questions I have for you. If I ask you, second question is, what do you think are the most important trends that will affect the future?
Use of technology.
Technology, yeah.
The divide between rich and poor.
Rich and poor, yeah.
I'll just add to that, digital divide.
Digital divide, yeah. Any other big trends that you feel will affect the future?
I think most of the people are not satisfied. Dissatisfaction.
Dissatisfaction? Okay.
Pollution.
Pollution? Anything else? Nobody's worried about climate change?
Structure.
I guess.
Structure.
What do you mean?
Structure.
What do you mean?
I mean, sort of defining education with certain boundaries, certain limitation, confining it to a certain boundary.
Okay. Through what? Do you think like surveillance mechanisms? Or how will it happen?
Or at least trying to standardize it.
Standardization.
You know, globally sort of accredited or globally making it for global audience. Global.
Yeah. Any other major trends you think? So when we work, I've been involved with future studies for a long time. So first thing you do as a futurist is to think about the trends. So any other trends you feel are important for shaping?
Customized education. Need-based.
That will be a trend. Not like, but like, so there could be ways you get to customization, but any major other forces that are going to impact
Generation gap.
generation gap,
AI.
AI was mentioned, yeah. Anything else?
Economy. Market. Economy.
Like what about it? Booming market, collapsing market, what?
Direction of it.
What do you think it's going to look like?
It looks like it's what will have to change. It will look different.
Okay. Is there any direction you see it going in?
Towards the cliff.
Towards the cliff? Okay. So in what sense will it go towards the cliff? Like unemployment, or some people mention
I think
gap of
ecological cliff.
the ecological cliff is what you're talking about, okay?
I see displacement of the skill set that today's graduates are expected to have,
Yeah.
and the future graduates. Like, they're going to be a mismatch, and that's how it's going to raise bigger concern about the kind of education that we would be imparting a few years down the line.
Yeah. So the skills you need for the future are not being taught today. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So does anyone think? Yes.
I
Tika.
think uncertainty will be even faster and deeper. How do you describe it? More uncertainty.
Yeah. Does anyone think unemployment is going to be an issue in the future? Yes. It's a major thing. You know, the Indian government has predicted in the next 20 years there will be 180 million educated unemployed youth. 118 crore. You think that's going to be a problem? So, and how about Bhavna? Are you sleeping?
I'm listening.
Mental health. Do you think it's going to be a bigger issue? Is it going to be a major
Of course
trend?
it is.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it's going to grow? Stress,
Yeah, I
anxiety,
think so.
depression. What do you guys think? Is it going to be a bigger issue?
Yeah.
This is one of those issues where I travel around the world meeting university vice chancellors. Everybody right now is shoving it under the carpet. Or they say, oh, we have one counselor. So, but if you actually go deep into what's happening in most universities, mental health epidemic is much higher. The drug epidemic, which is an extension of that, is very high. So we have to think, is this going to be growing? What do you guys think? Yeah. So one of the things in Ecoversities, we have a triangle, at least, which I think are three, trends which might take us off the cliff, as what Shal had said. So one trend is the mental health epidemic, because we see it very high in India and in many countries, that more and more people are, by the time they get their late teenage years, they're having lots of issues. In the U.S., you probably know that it's almost 40% of kids, adults, are on antidepressants and things like that. The second issue is everything related to the environment, climate change, pollution, loss of biodiversity. This will have huge consequences for humanity and for the way we think about education. And the third I would offer you is unemployment, really. So one of the things that AI, I meet a lot of young people who are like, oh, we're doing accounting, or some even are saying we're doing medicine. And I almost feel very sad, because I'm like, in 5 years, this will be gone. These professions will be, literally, there will be no need for these things. The computers will be able to handle it very fast, much faster, much more accurately. So, and we've seen this trend. We've seen this trend in the last 20 years. Has with all the computers and things, has employment increased or decreased? What do you guys think? Did it increase or decrease employment?
Increase?
Unemployment?
No, sorry. Employment increase with it.
Employment has increased, you think?
I think so, because with the these days of internet, they require all these IT services across industries. So more and more people are getting more employed. But with the fact that AI is rising, that might slash those jobs off.
So I don't know, again, in Nepal, I'm not sure, but in India, computers have led to lots of layoffs of people.
It's
And
already more
Huh?
educated. It's already more educated employed than educated unemployed. It's
Yeah.
already more educated unemployed than uneducated unemployed.
yeah. So, and even now, the great hope was, as you were saying, the great hope was the tech industry. But if you see it all over the world, the tech layoffs are skyrocketing, like thousands and thousands of tech workers are being sent home, or if they're lucky, they get a golden parachute, but most of the time they get sent home. So this is the kind of scenario we're working with. And what I think it's important to talk about is a lot of the educators I meet around the world, our work is to prepare students for the future. And when you usually start to talk to them about the future, most people go blank. Or they have very, pedestrian, like whatever they see from the newspaper or whatever. But are we really, in our vision going forward, whatever we're doing with students, are we really preparing people for a future? And what if that future, I'm saying, what if that is uncertainty, marked by uncertainty? Are there a different set of muscles and skill sets and mental models, emotional models that we need to develop, muscles that we need to develop for that kind of world of uncertainty? Because what was the formula? When we were all growing up, formula was very simple. Go to school, work, study hard, then you get into a good college, these are good exams, then you get into a good college, then you get a good job, and then you buy a lot of stuff, and then you'll be happy. Was this the formula we all grew up with? Do you think that formula is the same for young people today? It is the same. No, it isn't. And the biggest thing what shocked me was having something that we have known all over Asia for about at least 5,000 years, is having more and more and more and more stuff doesn't give you more happiness. Right? So that's why you see now in Japan and many parts of the world this minimalism movements. People are going and trying to get rid of this stuff. There's a very beautiful Sufi saying, more possessions, more possessed. So this idea of happiness, we talked a lot about, in Bhutan or in Latin America, there's a massive movement called Buen Vivir. What is a good life? So we were all told growing up, follow the American dream and you'll get to the good life. But what if American dream is not so happy? If people are not really, I was in San Francisco and you cannot believe the amount of homelessness in San Francisco. You cannot think you're in the United States when you go there and see what's happening. And most of those people are war veterans. This is how they're treating their war veterans. So I'm just saying that there's a lot that I would want to invite us. This is much longer. Usually I sometimes lead a course even on the future of education. So it takes a lot of time. But I'm just saying the first thing is to think about what are the significant trends that we see for the future. Let me shift a little bit to my personal story. So I was born in India, and when I was 3, I was kidnapped by the American dream. So my parents and I were uprooted and taken to U.S. to Chicago, and I grew up there. I went to school there, government school there, and started my career. Since I was a child, I always had this vision of, very inspired by Gandhiji, that we have to serve. Seva was a big value in our family. So I thought, how can I serve? So my first job was as an investment banker on Wall Street. And then I thought, this is not really serving. This is helping to loot the planet. And so I left that. And then I thought I'll become an academic. So I went to Harvard for some time, and I had many questions there. So I left, then I went to the UN, Wall Street. So a couple of things, really by the time I was 28, I was very disillusioned. And there was a few things that disillusioned me being in the world. And when I was in UNESCO, there was a very important project that I worked on called Learning Without Frontiers. So I was traveling all around the world, meeting global experts in cognitive science and tech and management studies and anthropology, all kinds of fields, indigenous studies, to talk about the future of education and how it has to shift. And what I realized is, though we had a team, the rest of the UN didn't want to really think about it, because business as usual, as we know, is very profitable. There's a lot of education as a big business. For a lot of it's billion or maybe even $1 trillion global business that people are making money in. So to move the system in any direction is very, very hard. So I was disillusioned, And the disillusionment came from a few different questions. So, first question is I started thinking, who is wasting more water in the world? The pade likhe educated or the unpad? What do you guys think? Who wastes more water? Educated. Who makes more pollution? Pade likhe unpad? Educated. Who eats more junk food? Huh? Who eats more junk food?
That may have a little curve,
Yeah, but more.
but that may have a little curve. Like the eating junk food rises up with certain level of education, and gradually when
You get enlightened, then you
yeah,
start.
getting enlightened.
Then you come and start eating
Yeah, you
organic
might go
millets.
down.
Start realizing it.
Yeah, sure. When you go to have a heart attack, then you come down on the curve. Anyways, you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. Is that there is a certain mindset that is getting created, and the mindset is a very deep separation from the rest of nature, separation from our bodies, separation from our hands, separation from our hearts. There's always all of us have been to villages, I think, and if you go into any village, you show up to somebody's house, what will they do? What will they do?
Like to offer you something.
They'll offer you food. They may not be rich, they may not have fancy, they'll offer you water, they'll offer you food, they'll take care of you, they may even help you get back to wherever you need to get for transport. And what if you go to the richest people in their houses?
They'll avoid.
You only can greet the dog. There's a beware of dog sign, right? So there's a certain scarcity that we also have seen, a scarcity in the mindset, a fear that grows. So there is a kind of mindset which is based on separation, competition, fear, scarcity, even fragmented thinking. Let me ask you another question. So how many of you have been following the climate talks? COP, climate talks? Yeah? So why can't they come to an agreement? Every single person there, if you ask them individually, thinks that climate change is a serious environmental issue. Why can't they agree?
Because they are the one contributing the most and responsible for
They know it's a problem and they're contributing most to it.
the developed ones.
And why don't they want to change it?
They are hijacked by these global kind of dreams, higher kind of
Right. So
facilities, all kind of.
there could be that. There's also, I don't know, have you ever followed this? After Hitler's thing, there was these Nuremberg trials. They put the doctors and engineers. The army guys were already on trial, but they brought the doctors and the engineers. And they said, you guys were building the concentration camps, you were creating those things to inject and everything. Why didn't you stop it? What was their response? Their response was, we were just following orders. We didn't know. We were just doing our little piece, our fragmented, compartmental little piece. We were just doing that. We were never invited to think about the whole system. And so we have this very fragmented thought. So what I use this short form, I call it the monoculture of the mind. That the modern universities are creating a certain monoculture mindset. And it's a very serious, and that is almost put in a place of global paralysis. We have all these issues and challenges, and yet we're not able to move with any of those because of this monoculture of mind. So this was one thing that really hit me, is that the mindset, and I went to the best liberal arts programs in the US and everything. I know people in all of these great traditions in the West, but their mindset is so fragmented and so afraid. And so our universities in India and many other countries are also reproducing that same mindset. And the other thing that hit me, like you have to ask why would a 28-year-old guy having a great time in Paris with a very cushy UN post, glamorous, why would they throw it all away and resign and come back to their village, back to their grandmother. So I'm giving you this. So one was this monoculture of the mind, which we had to say, and the institutions are producing this mindset, right? And we're trained like sociology or philosophy or biology. These are all seen as single subjects, fragmented subjects. Are we being trained to see things holistically, to understand holistically, to understand compassionately, to understand imaginatively, rather than reproducing the same systems? This was a major question I had at that time. This is 27 years ago. The other question was very shocking. So I used to work for USAID in Africa. And a study came out in Africa. For every $1 of foreign aid that the US government gives to, this project was in Ethiopia, gives to Ethiopia, US global corporations earn $10 of profit on that. The day I read that study, I resigned. There's another study that came out which is more recent. $140 billion comes from the global north to the global south every year in aid to help us, to civilize us, to develop us. And guess how much goes the other way? 1.3 trillion. 140 billion this way, 1.3 trillion that way. So who's developing whom? And we can see it, all of these development projects that are coming in are actually, if you go study them more deeply, they're based on a model of military extraction. Extract resources from the local communities. So this is another thing that very much disturbed me, and I thought we need to have a different mindset, a different kind of education that does not make us into global parasites. It actually doesn't make us into global consumers. And what's the best thing you need to be a global consumer? Yeah, the marketing person is here. If you want to make global consumers, what do you need to do to people? Can anyone say? What do you need people to do? No, but how do you sell them that? What do they have to feel? Yeah, what do you do to their mind?
Create the need.
Create the need. No, global, it's not need, it's greed. How do you create the greed?
Pollute
How do you
their
make?
mind.
Huh?
Pollute their mind.
With how? How do you pollute their mind?
School.
What does advertisement do to you? You manufacture insecurity. You manufacture, am I right? She knows marketing very well. You manufacture self-hate. You say, oh, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not intelligent enough, and this brand will make me feel like I'm number one. Right? So you have to manufacture this thing. And we have even today in India, I don't know about Nepal, we still have the white hangover. Somehow in our mind, we still think the West is superior to us. They're more intelligent. They know things better. Whatever their consultants come, they may not even know anything about our countries very much. But we still pay their consultants so big, like McKinsey or World Bank consultants. They come and they tell us how to do things. And we accept. So I could not think when I was 28 of and you give those consultants, those experts, they talk very nicely, right? I was one of them. So they talk very nicely. You give them 2 shots of whiskey at the night. What do they tell you? They tell you, we don't know. We don't know what to do here. We don't know how to solve their problems. I cannot tell you how many consultant reports I used to go through. And they would just, same thing, cut and paste. And sometimes they forget to change the country. So they're handing in the report and it says, oh, Rwanda, and they're giving the report to Nepal. And so just kind of manufacturing. Well, rather than understanding the diverse culture and context. So you have to make people feel like they're second class, that they don't know. Right? And so that was when I started understanding this is the game. I said I need to get back to, and the thing that Vijay didn't tell you, my wife and I enrolled ourselves in an un-PhD program. And that un-PhD was an unlearning program with my village grandmother. Because she had a very different, she had a sense of abundance. She had a deep wisdom. She had a connection to all the living beings. She knew how to build community. So we tried to start to understand, what is this? How do we work in this way? How do we understand education? She knew a lot, so anything that the officials don't understand, informal, they put it all in a bucket. Informal. So tell me, which is bigger, formal or informal? Informal. Informal economy, just to prove the point. Which is bigger, the formal economy or the informal economy?
Informal.
How big?
In Nepal, it's quite big.
Like 10 times, 20 times, 50 times?
No official statistics, but it's close to 70 to 80% of the formal economy.
Right. So that's just a little sense of it. If we started to think as educators, the informal knowledge systems. So we were just in the University of the River. Have you been there? How many of you been there? University of the River. Yes, the University of River. There's a language for the river. There's a whole set of knowledge systems. There's a whole economy of the river. The river, none of our civilizations can exist without the rivers. And how much time, one of my friends, he's in India, he's called the Waterman of India, Rajendra Singh. So he keeps asking, he's like, without water, there's no life. Why isn't any NBA program studying water, understanding water systems, understanding forest systems? All of these things are necessary to sustain life. If you don't sustain life, how are you going to sustain your business? So the river, we were on a very deep journey with the river, but we never consider the river part of our education. And the person who knows a lot about the river, because they don't have a degree, what do we call them? Uneducated, stupid, backward. Right? We were just driving by your river here. What's the river called? Is it? Huh? No, here. The one here that smells so nice.
Yeah. It's Bagmati.
Yeah, Bagmati. So you see what the educated mind has done to the rivers here. Right? So I think these were the two questions. And so it pushed me so much that I had an arranged marriage with my wife. We met 4 times and my mother was 2 times there. So it's difficult to see whether that counts as a meeting or not. But when I was finally alone with her, I said, you remember I went to Harvard. I said, when I have children, I'm never going to send them to school. And I thought she'll run away. And she went to Delhi University and she said, this is a wonderful idea. And our parents were so desperate to get us married. They also said, this is okay, you do it. They never thought we'll do. But we have a 22-year-old daughter. She's never gone to school. She's never taken an exam. She's a very talented artist, designer, filmmaker, chef, musician, does many different things, whatever. And a very, very simple person. And so in India, we have a network of more than 10,000 families who remove their children from school. And they follow various, from unschooling, which is no formal system, all the way to, homeschooling, which you might rely on some syllabus and things like that. So what happened was my mother is a doctor. And you can imagine, I went to Harvard, my sister went to Harvard. So you can imagine the pressure from the big boss. So when my daughter was not going to school, she was having a nervous breakdown. And so when my daughter was 6 years, her nickname is Kamku. When she was 6 years old, my mother was calling me every day. She has to start preparing now for exam. How is she going to university? So I got very tense, and then finally I got an idea. Oh, I'll start my own university. For people who want to have a more customized learning, who want to have more practical learning, who want to connect to many diverse kinds of people, let us create a new university. And who are we inspired by for this? All of the major freedom fighters and thinkers of India. Gandhiji, Tagore, Vinoba Bhave, Krishnamurti, Sri Aurobindo, all of them were, first critique was that the education system is there to make us into coconuts. Right? Brown on the outside, white on the inside. And so, and we know that we can never be fully white. That's why 25 years in the US taught me you can try as much as you want to be white and try to beat the white, you'll never be accepted as white. So that is the thing, is that, and maybe it's a good thing, because if you become like that, there's a saying, if you beat them at their own game, you will lose everything. So maybe it's a good thing that I couldn't become fully white, and I came back to India to actually understand who I was. So we feel that the first point of the university we have, Swaraj University, this question, which is probably the biggest question that Asia has offered and will continue to offer to the world, is who am I? Formal education system never really asks you, who am I? Except I'm a global consumer, maybe that's who we explore, but who am I really, and what is my purpose? This has to be the core of a real education system. So people think, because I have a lot of critique of the formal system, that I'm against it. But I'm against a fake system. So Gandhiji, if you remember, had 4 H's, 3, and I've added a 4th. What were the 3 H's? Anyone know? Gandhiji? Head, heart, hands, and the 4th, which more and more now science is catching up to what indigenous people know, is home. If we don't know about our home, if we don't understand our ecosystems, if we're not able to communicate with all of the other beings and understand their intelligence, there's not much future for humanity. Right? So the very simple saying of home is, we forgot, whatever we do to nature, we do to ourselves. If we remember this, and all of the indigenous communities all over the world knew this. That's why there was a sense of care and sacred connection, because we knew that we cannot exist outside of the rest of nature. So this question, so we created this 15 years ago. We were doing this before, but we didn't maybe have the full courage or conviction to say we're also a university. But then we met many people. So my university has more than 1,000 faculty. I have the best student-teacher ratio in the world. Our faculty, who are they? They're grandmothers. They're tribal fishermen. They're artisans who no designer in the world can produce what our artisans produce, the quality on the design. They are farmers, organic farmers, traditional farmers who know how to grow millets, and who will know how to grow millets even when the climate keeps increasing. They will solve the problem how to feed people. It's not the genetically modified crops that are owned by Monsanto that can solve our problems, right? So these are the people, and they're also scientists. They're also doctors. They're also healers. There's so many different people, but there are people who are saying that we have to come back and develop a more holistic view of education, of learning. So this is a little bit about that. And what happened is, so we don't give any degree in our university. I don't believe in degrees, because degree creates, there's a saying here, the more I know about how little I know. This was our tradition. Humility, the highest value in Asia of learning is humility. Humility, right? And so that humility knows there's always something more that I don't understand, that I don't know. I need to keep learning. And so as soon as people get degree, they get very arrogant. They pretend like they know. But today, in the time of uncertainty, we need to keep coming back to the beginner's mind, what I call the beginner's mind. That mindset to try to see something different, something fresh in the situations that we're facing. So how do we bring our people? And as soon as we get degrees, we start to think, oh, that tribal fisherman doesn't know anything about the river. And today, most of I think it's something like 70% of the medical patents that are coming back are on the knowledge of indigenous people right now. 70% is coming from their knowledge. It's not from the labs. So how do we start to understand those systems again? How do we engage with them in deep ways? Because if we start, otherwise you understand, let's say, a certain herb has some properties. What is this monoculture mind, what will it do? It will either start to destroy the entire ecosystem and only plant that herb, right? And then the herb's properties will start to dissipate because it needs many other things. Or it will totally wipe out the species. Right? So let me give you one example. In India, how many varieties of rice were there 100 years ago? Anyone have any idea? Guess.
600.
600. Okay. Anybody else guess? How many varieties do you know?
First with house over that.
How many varieties do you personally know?
10.
10 varieties. How about you, ma'am?
10
10. I won't ask you to name the 10. So in India, documented varieties 100 years ago was 114,000 varieties documented by the British themselves. Informally, people say there were more than 2 lakh varieties. How many exist today? With all of our great education, how many varieties exist today? Each of those varieties was tailored, very minutely tailored to ecosystems. How many exist today? Less than 1,000. 7,000. Less than 7,000. In the next 20 years, they're predicting it'll be less than 1,000. Some will say even if you go for GM rice, then you're talking only 4 or 5 varieties maximum. So this is where the monoculture. This is an example to help you understand what is this monoculture mind doing. Our indigenous mind was able to create thousands and thousands of varieties. Something today that our modern monoculture we can even imagine what 114,000 varieties of rice would look like. It's not even in our intelligence, in our consciousness. So this is where we have a campaign called Healing Ourselves from the Diploma Disease. So I have more than 1,000 because if you go to talk to any CEO of any company, they will 100% agree with what I'm saying. What do you think? You agree? Will they agree with me? They'll agree because they take all these college graduates and they have retraining program for them. Aware? What is basically in terms of practical knowledge, because we cannot, you want to put a job application right now in India, any post, you'll have at least 10, 20, 100,000 people applying. So you need some filter to cut it down. 5 minutes, yes. So you need to cut it down, that filter. So what we need to do is to actually start to see what are the valuable things for people to learn. So we talk to CEOs. I have more than 1,000 companies, NGOs. They're willing to take my students. I said, give them a chance. Give them an internship. Give them an entry. They'll work with you for 6 months. If you like, you keep them. If you don't, let them go. And I tell them, you give them 10-minute interview just as a personal invitation to me. As a personal favor to me. And that 10-minute interview turns usually into a 2-hour. They're so fascinated by all the kinds of projects, real-world things that the students are working on. So, and I didn't tell you, we don't use the word student. We use the word koji. Koji means seeker. So this is our philosophical tradition. We are born as seekers. Right? We have something already, seed is inside us. We're not empty, right? So a tradition which would understand that, okay, you have come with a deeper purpose. We have already come, so we have to help you find your purpose. We don't have to just fill you with information and things, and then you go and you see we were talking, Amina and I were the other. So liberal arts, people go to liberal arts 4 years. At the end of 4 years, they're still confused. They have no idea what they want to work on. Then they delay another 2 years. Then they say, okay, we'll go for law school because we don't know, or we'll go for, MBA, but we don't really know what we really want to work on, what we want to do in our lives. So it's just a delaying program, and then what happens is you go through that, then you're filled with a lot of debt. So I know so many people who went in with a little bit of passion. They came out with so much debt on their head. They said, no, I can't do any of my dreams to help society. I have to go and pay off my debt the next 10 years. I'll have to work as a corporate slave to do that. So anyway, so then what happened in our Swaraj University, we started meeting people all over the world who also were creating this basic ideas, creating their own kind of universities. So in Mexico, in Brazil, in UK, in US, all over, this idea, this questioning of higher education has been happening. The first stream of it was in the 60s. There's a huge stream of questioning higher education that happened, big movement in the 60s. And now in the last 10 years, there's another big wave of movement coming because of the debt, university debt, and the cost has gone, to study at the universities I studied at, it's at least almost $80,000-$90,000 a year. Most people are like, this is way too much to even dream about, right? So that's one thing. So we have created this whole movement called Ecoversities. So Ecoversities are these alternative universities, and we're trying to open up. So one of the things when I was in UNESCO, I used to ask people, what is one of the most powerful learning experiences of your life? And very, very, very few people would say something in the classroom. They'll say my time with my grandparents. They'll say the traveling here. They'll say time I spent alone in silence in Vipassana. They'll say 100 other things, nothing to do with the formal syllabus. And yet these are all treated as extracurricular. The real things that matter. Even, there's a saying, the children give birth to the parents. That having children is one of the most magical learning experiences of our lives. But it's never valued by the formal education system. Right? All the care economy, work women are doing, has never been valued in the last 100 years by the economy. So many women introducing, I'm only a housewife, I don't do anything. They are keeping the whole show together, yeah? And the most precious thing that they're helping to grow our children, grow with our children. And that's not at all valued in the modern society. And same thing with caring for, when I went to care for my grandparents, people said, you're wasting your time, just hire somebody, you're in the peak of your career, why do you want to go and do that? But so how are we, and we see all of this in front of us, right? It's no longer like you have to do this cost-benefit analysis of how much time you want to give to your elders and all of that. So we're getting pulled in a model which I don't think we can win. And if we win, we will lose. So this Ecoversities, we have all kind of different models. There's grandmothers universities, there's travelers universities, we have a jail university we've set up in the Udaipur jail. We have a farmers university. We have river universities, forest universities. So the other thing that is happening, one of the most interesting debates in the world right now is, where does intelligence sit? Where does consciousness sit? This is a big debate among philosophers, scientists. And if that is happening, everyone is agreeing it's not sitting here only. We were told it sits there. But there's an intelligence in our hands, muscle memories we can talk about. That's a common way to talk about. There's an intelligence of our hearts. There's an intelligence that the mushrooms have. There's an intelligence that the trees have, that the water systems have. And so we need to start to reconnect to that intelligence for the future of humanity, if there is a future. So that's what Ecoversities is trying to do. We have more than 500 members in 50 countries. We have a simple way that anybody can start their own universities. So we don't have to wait. Those who are in the conventional systems, again, 2 whiskeys and they will tell you they're in crisis. Those systems in the West, you go and meet them. Maybe Harvard has a $6 billion endowment, but if you give their experts some little bit of a private company, they'll admit, we know that the models we have are not going to work. So we need to create our own models in our own countries and our own context. That's the movement of Ecoversities, is to do that. So I'll leave it there for questions. Yes, thank you.